Today's episode is very deep for so many reasons. I am currently in my podcast studio. You can't see me, but I'm in my podcast studio wearing one of my favorite pairs of pajamas, and I have a warm cup of sleep tea. And the sleep tea I have is a herbal formulation that I formulated for myself and for my family to help us get good rest. And part of the reason why this is so poignant and so on point is because today's episode is about something that we all need. You guessed it, sleep. Welcome to another episode of the Melanin Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Cori, and today we're going to be discussing something that is common for many survivors of trauma, but more specifically, sexual trauma: sleep disturbances. This episode is about understanding why sleep is affected and learning practical, gentle strategies to improve it. While I am not a doctor yet, however, I am a survivor of sexual trauma, so I can speak from personal experience, and today I will be sharing a short excerpt of my memoir that I wrote last year. But before I begin this very powerful episode, I will begin it as I do every episode of this show, with 30 seconds of gratitude. Today, I am grateful for healing. Healing is pivotal in our lives, and oftentimes it can change how we view things. It can change how we handle stressors, and it changes how we operate. When you're walking in a lot of trauma and you haven't yet processed it or healed from it, it often dictates how you deal with things and people. And you'll find yourself in situations where you may be overreacting a bit, and it may not make sense to others. And sometimes it doesn't make sense even to us in the moment. But when we begin our healing journeys and start to process all the unhealed trauma and unprocessed grief from the trauma, we begin to open up like a flower in the spring. So I'm so grateful for healing. And I am grateful for rest. Again, as I touched on in the beginning, I was not always able to get good quality rest because of my own unhealed traumas and unprocessed grief. And it prevented my body from doing something very basic, yet so necessary. So I'm grateful for sleep. Now, that was more than 30 seconds of gratitude, and that's okay. Because taking out time to give gratitude allows you to look back and see just how far you've come, how much you've grown, and how much you've healed. Now let's begin, family. So today we're kicking off the episode with a powerful excerpt from my book, Note to Self: Lessons on Trauma and Thriving in Its Aftermath. And in this book, I take you through my personal journey of trauma, healing, and ultimately finding myself on the other side of pain. This particular excerpt, it highlights how trauma impacted one of the most basic yet essential functions: sleep. When you're a child of trauma, especially a little black girl of trauma, you become a master of illusion. On the outside, no one would ever know, suspect, or even imagine what was happening on the inside. Behind my beautiful smile, overachievements, and contagious laughter, I was literally deteriorating by the second. There is a point at which those things begin to creep out, though. For example, when pre-puberty appeared, the day the doctor told my mother that I would begin growing breasts soon, and that would inevitably lead to my periods. I was in a frenzy. I remember fighting the doctors every time they wanted to examine me, especially my private area. I would scream and squirm. I can still feel that wave of nausea after hearing that. You would think that that would have set up alarm bells for the adults, but I was simply told to be still and let the doctor do the exam. That I was just being difficult and to stop embarrassing my mother. I didn't want to grow breasts because then boys would like them. And I did not want boys to like them, or me for that matter. I remember it was after that appointment that I began having stomach aches constantly and was sick an awful lot. I couldn't sleep. And when I did, I had nightmares. That excerpt takes me back to that moment when I read that, and I can remember that time period in my life as a young girl, and I remember how afraid I was of all the changes that were coming, and I remember how I was unable to sleep often, and when I would sleep, the nightmares would come, and they would be of the things that had happened to me up to that point. At that point of that excerpt, I was probably about 11. I was about 11 years old. So I had already suffered some traumas. Sexual assault survivors often experience sleep disturbances because trauma affects the nervous system. The body and the brain remain on high alert at all times, even when there is no immediate danger. And here's why. We are in hyper arousal, or what is known as fight or flight mode. It stays on 24/7. So no matter where we are or what we're doing, we are hyper alert. Trauma keeps the nervous system stuck in survival mode, making it hard to relax enough to fall asleep. Then the body begins to release hormones, the cortisol and adrenaline, which are the stress hormones, keeping the brain wired and alert. And I remember at that point in time is when I began to have anxiety attacks to the point to where they would manifest themselves in hives all over my body. I remember I missed a lot of school during that time because I was constantly breaking out in hives, full body, and I would swell. So back then, there weren't the things that are available now. So I would be loaded up on a lot of Benadryl, and obviously we all know Benadryl puts us to sleep. Another reason why sleep is disrupted is due to the nightmares and flashbacks that we often have. The brain tries to process trauma while we are asleep. And sometimes it leads to those vivid and distressing dreams. And these often cause frequent awakenings, making it difficult to go back to sleep. Oftentimes, I was afraid to go back to sleep because I was afraid that I would go back into that very nightmare that I had just escaped from by waking up. And so, you're awake a lot. Then there's the fear and the hypervigilance that comes with it. I think I touched on that a few moments ago. The subconscious mind may associate nighttime or sleep with vulnerability. And so it makes that feel unsafe. It makes us feel unsafe at night. And this can also lead to our difficulties in falling asleep or waking up often to check our environments, even when we are in seemingly a safe environment. I had these sleep disturbances for many, many years after, because I'm going to be honest with you, the trauma, unfortunately for me, didn't stop with that childhood trauma. Trauma continued throughout my life. And for those of you who've already read the book, you know that trauma was a huge part of my life well into my adulthood. And so falling asleep and staying asleep was a definite challenge for me. Most times my body would just simply time out, meaning that I would go for so many days consecutively without getting proper rest that my body would just become so exhausted that I just couldn't go on anymore, and I would just organically just fall into this deep sleep, this very deep, heavy sleep. And another thing that leads to that sleep disrupteds for us are the emotional triggers, and obviously the insomnia, anxiety, depression, and PTSD related thoughts can cycle through the mind at night, preventing that deep sleep. I call that sleeping awake, which is an absolute disaster. I hate sleeping awake. I'll explain that in just a second. Also, some survivors experience a fear of losing control, making sleep feel unsettling rather than restful. Sleeping awake is where I am asleep, quote unquote, but I can literally hear and feel everything that's happening in my environment around me. So if there are cars driving outside, if my family is getting up throughout the night to go to the bathroom, if there's a dog barking somewhere, no matter what, I can hear everything, the TV, everything. And that is not restful sleep. I wake up exhausted. And this happens from time to time now, not nearly as often as it used to. When I am particularly stressed or if there is a trigger that comes by, now I will have some sleep disturbances. However, because of my healing and some of the practices that I have implemented into my life, it has helped me to be able to get back to sleep and to sleep more comfortably. Most of us who are survivors do have a fear of not being in control because that violation was something we absolutely could not control. We had no control over it. We had no control over how our bodies reacted. And so we often are what people call control freaks, and we seek to control most things because that gives us comfort. Now that I've touched on why our sleep can be disturbed, let's get into some gentle strategies to help improve sleep. So since trauma affects sleep on both a physical and an emotional level, healing sleep habits involve calming the body and reassuring the mind. So number one, let's try creating a sense of safety before bedtime. So if keeping a night light or using soft lighting works for you because the absolute darkness feels too unsettling, honestly, that's one of the reasons why I sleep with the TV on at night. Fortunately, my husband doesn't mind, but we sleep with the TV on at night because the complete darkness to this day is still too much for me. Also, weighted blankets. And I discovered weighted blankets I want to say probably when my daughter was about 3 or 4, and we had discovered that she was on the autism spectrum, and the weighted blankets helped her to sleep. So I discovered those then. And for some people, that gentle pressure provides comfort and it helps to reduce anxiety. It definitely did for my daughter. I just pile a bunch of blankets on top. And it definitely does. It makes me feel warm and snuggly. So I love a lot of blankets. I always tend to be cold anyway, so that works. If silence is uneasy for you, try a white noise machine or a calming music or even sleep stories. And again, with the TV being on, many times there's something very lo-fi, very calming playing in the background. Or if my husband falls asleep after I do and he's watching something, I have a headband set of headphones and it's for sleep. And I put it on at night when I sleep and I'll listen to some solfeggio tones or healing frequency music. And it really just helps to calm my anxiety and help me to get some better sleep. So number 2, we're going to establish a soothing bedtime routine. Now, this is going to look different for everybody, right? So let's try setting a consistent bedtime to train your body to expect sleep. Now, this can be tough for some of us depending on your lifestyle. For me, it is really hard because I have teenagers at home and they are all athletes, as you guys know. And so I'm traveling very frequently. So it's not always possible for me to get in bed at the same time. However, because of that consistent bedtime routine that I began, I do notice that even if I can't get in bed, I am still sleepy at that specific time because my body is like, okay, it's time for us to go to bed. Okay, let's go. Also, use soothing herbs and teas and essential oils like lavender, lemon balm, or even chamomile tea. All three of those herbs, I use those herbs and I actually make a sleep blend using some of those ingredients, and it naturally relaxes the body. Lemon balm specifically is what is called a nervine. So it is absolutely amazing for reducing anxiety and leading to calm and relaxation. So even without the sleep aspect, just for regular relaxation, lemon balm is an amazing herb to lean into. You can also find these also as essential oils. And I like to make a little spritz for my pillows out of some hydrogen peroxide and some distilled water. And then I'll put in whatever the desired essential oil is, and I'll spritz the pillows. And it definitely helps to relax the senses a bit. Next, journal before bed. It can help to offload racing thoughts onto paper. I have talked about journaling several times on the show, and journaling, it absolutely helps me to offload. It allows me to write out everything I need. I've written out my to-do list for the next day before. I've written out whatever happened to me in that day. I've written out feelings. I've written out whatever. And when I do that, my mind is able to go to bed clear and relaxed. So I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about the next day. I'm not thinking about what happened during the day. I am calm and relaxed. So it definitely helps. Next up, let's talk about a little bit of gentle movement and breath work. Now, I talk about this on the show before as well. Progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR, means the tensing and releasing of muscles helps the body to feel safe and grounded. And you guys know that I am a huge proponent of yoga. In fact, I am a yoga instructor. I'm a certified instructor, and yoga is something that I use with my family, with myself, and even with some of my clients who want to take that route. And yoga is absolutely amazing for helping to reground you and relaxing you and helping you to feel safe. It's an amazing tool to use. I would recommend it to anyone. And you can find some amazing yogis on YouTube, like some amazing yogis that do the most amazing grounding sequences. I'll leave a couple of their links in my show notes for you. One is Ariana Elizabeth, and another one is the Black Yogi Nico. I will leave both of their channels listed in the show notes so that you guys can go over and check out their channels. Amazing. Next, breathing exercises like the 4-7-8 method or the 5-5-5 method. Again, I've talked about this, and that simply entails inhaling for the 5 seconds, holding for 5 seconds, exhaling for 5 seconds, or inhaling for 4, holding for 7, exhaling for 8. This definitely helps to calm the nervous system because it disrupts those anxiety signals that your body is sending to your brain, and I feel an instant calm whenever I get in a situation that causes me anxiety. And it doesn't always have to be trauma related. It can just be somebody irritates me in traffic, okay? A little too much. And then I go into that breathing at a stoplight or something, and I can immediately feel my body begin to kind of calm down and come back to a more even space. So breathing exercises are absolutely incredible. And in fact, I have something special for you guys toward the end of the show. So hang out until the end so that you can hear about that. And again, gentle yoga or stretching. And it just signals the body that it's time to wind down. I have a little 5-minute sequence that I do every night before I go to sleep. And it does wonders. Like, it releases the tension in my body in several areas, specifically in my hips, because as I have talked about on the show several times, we often store trauma in our hips. And so stretching that out releases it, leading to a more restful night's sleep and a calmer nervous system. And finally, we're going to talk about managing, your nightmares and flashbacks. So if nightmares happen often, we're going to re-script them. So we're going to write down a different ending where you feel strong and in control. We're going to change the end of that story. It doesn't matter that that's not how it happened. We're going to rewrite that. And you're going to visualize that powerful, strong, in control version right before you go to bed. Keep a comfort item nearby, a stuffed animal, crystals, special blankets for reassurance, whatever works for you. I'm a stuffed animal girl. I'm sure you've probably seen my huge stuffed animal friend, Jerry. My husband bought him for me several years ago. He used to work a graveyard shift, and I couldn't sleep at night without him there. I didn't feel safe. So he bought me this giant stuffed animal for me to keep him beside me in the bed. And so that's what I did. And I still have Jerry to this day. And my husband doesn't work their shift anymore, but I still fall on Jerry sometimes when I just kind of need that little, feel safe and comfortable. All right, so we're going to also talk about, reducing stimulation and screen time. So we're going to try our best to avoid social media or intense TV, especially the news right now before bed, because it absolutely can trigger anxiety at any point in time in the day with all the things that are going on and the many challenges and the triggers, the bait that is being targeted directly at the Black community right now. It definitely can trigger a sense of anxiety. So definitely do your digital detoxes, not just before bed, but several times throughout the day. Find something funny to look at, something that makes you laugh, read a good book, just back away for a bit, because one anxiety triggers another anxiety, and they can be completely unrelated. All that anxiety needs is a kickstart, and you're off. Okay? Also, try some blue light blocking glasses or dim screens if scrolling is a habit, because actually, I have those. I have those for my kids as well. They're very good to reduce eye strain anyway. So, those blue light blocking glasses, they even have them as just some simple readers. So even if you don't wear prescription glasses, they do have simple blue light blocking readers, and I have some of those as well. So yeah, try those. It definitely helps with reducing eye strain and headaches. So that's a good tip there. And don't forget to practice self-compassion. If sleep isn't coming, don't force it. Resting quietly is still restorative. Sometimes getting the sleep is just not going to happen. But let's not get up and start doing other stuff. Like, I used to have a bad habit of, if I couldn't sleep, I would just grab my laptop and I would start working. No. That's not going to help. That's not going to help. And you're not giving your brain time to just download. And so we want to always make sure we're giving our brain time to rest. Our body does its best work when we are asleep, when we're resting. And so instead of stressing over the lost sleep, remind yourself, my body is learning how to rest again. And that is okay. Healing sleep takes time and patience. So be kind to yourself in the process. Sleep after trauma can feel like an absolute battle, but it is possible to find that rest again. Trust me, I'm telling you from experience. Small, consistent habits can retrain the brain and the body to feel safe at night. Healing is not about, quote unquote, getting over it, because that's not going to happen. It's about learning to feel safe again, one step at a time. As I stated, I know how deeply sleep can be affected after trauma, which is why I've created a special resource for you. I've recorded a set of sleep-friendly affirmations for survivors to help you relax and feel safe before bed. You can listen to the audio version right now. Just check the show notes or visit buymeacoffee.com/the Melanin Wellness Podcast /membership to grab it. I made sure that I kept it very inexpensive for everyone to be able to access it as you need. This will be a donation basis because I want to make sure that anyone can access this resource as needed. Thank you again so much, family, for tapping in to this episode. I really hope that this was helpful for you. If you are a survivor, please know you are not alone. I hope that you were able to take something from this episode. I hope it resonated with you. Thank you for listening to the excerpt of my book. If you would like to purchase the book, the link for that will be in the show notes as well. Family, sleep does not have to be like this phantom and never come back. Remember, your body does its best healing work when you are at rest. Until next time, family, take care.